Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Giannis Janaeus. This is our preview show of Burnley versus Fulham at Turf Moor. Boy, this is going to be a huge match for Fulham, and I cannot wait to get Giannis's thoughts on that. But before we do anything else, I have to welcome Giannis back to the show. Mr. Janaeus, how are you doing on this Tuesday? We're talking about the fact that we both have snow on the ground. It's a little depressing for me. But you know what? You know what makes it a little bit better? We can talk about Fulham after a Fulham victory. So let's start here. Give me your thoughts to get us going. I know I've done 2 shows on it, but I've not gotten your view of Fulham's massive victory against Everton. Let it rip.
It was immense, wasn't it? It was absolutely. It was a good old-fashioned, what they say here in North America, a good old.
You and I predicted it, by the way.
Yeah, we did.
We predicted it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and I said it would be 1-0. You said 2-1.
Yep.
I thought that. I mean, Calvert-Lewin not playing made a difference, obviously. But
yes, it absolutely did.
First to 90, we outplayed them. We outthought them. They looked a little flat. I did think that going up to Goodison Park, playing without a crowd, it would be an advantage because they're pretty rabid. And we were just there were performances that I'm still shaking my head at Harrison Reed's incredible performance.
Ran the show, as we
just
said
ran
on
the show.
Shows.
It was his world, and everybody else just followed him. There wasn't anyone that didn't put in a great performance, and they looked a little disheveled. I had a feeling that they had problems after the cup game against Tottenham, but tremendous win. Now. We go and play a very different team.
Completely different.
And we've had no lock-up. We've had no glory up at Turf Moor, for many years. And Wednesday night kickoff, 6 p.m. local time, is going to be a very interesting game.
Absolutely. Sure. And let's see if history can be made twice by Fulham in less than a week. And I have a good feeling about it, but I'll give my prediction in a little bit. And what's interesting, Giannis, before we move on and we talk about a topic that I want to get your thoughts on, going back to the Everton match. Like I said, you and I predicted this. We predicted a victory. And I think you've already mentioned some of the reasons, when you look at the Calvert-Lewin loss, it was massive, no crowd, again, advantage to Fulham. But here's the thing that surprised me, because I was expecting a response from Carlo Ancelotti at halftime. I expected something similar that we saw from Sam Allardyce at West Brom. At halftime he made changes because Fulham were really running the show. They didn't score, but they were controlling the match. What are your thoughts about what he did not do at halftime? Do you think, it's funny, we were talking about this last night. Do you think they were a little arrogant, that Everton were arrogant, that they just thought that they could just win this match without really giving it everything possible, like Fulham did? Again, Fulham had all the energy; they wanted it more. But do you think that this came down to a little bit of arrogance? I think
we surprised them.
Okay,
to be honest, I thought it was sort of funny because in the first half we defended and closed space down like Burnley. We were hunting in packs, and whenever. Rodriguez, we gave him some good old-fashioned treatment first half. And Gomez. There was no place to turn. There was no space to move. And we were so quick to close space down that they didn't have any time. And I think Ancelotti would have been really surprised by the venom which we came out with and the fire that we came out in the first 15, 20. And he might have been surprised by the setup. And I think Scotty Parker deserves a lot of credit for this.
He absolutely does.
He played a back three, and I was wondering about this. And I think what he did is he figured, okay, if Calvert-Lewin's not in there, the man who's going to have to make the runs and the channels, and the routes is going to have to be Richarlison. Yep. Not the same player. I mean, he's improved, but not the same player. And as a result, really, you really saw the frustration when Seamus Coleman first half hit that shot that hit the base of the post, and you could turn on him. He was yelling. I'm not sure he was yelling to pass the ball, but that seemed to indicate a lack of sync with their team moving forward. And even in the second half, they just really seemed very monodirectional.
Yeah,
they didn't have any plan B.
No, they didn't at all.
Digne couldn't get anything on that left-hand side.
And you were very concerned about him going into the match.
Yes,
I
I was.
remember when we did the preview, you were focusing on him.
Yes.
And again, he was stifled,
Mm-hmm.
completely stifled. Seamus Coleman, nothing, and again, everything that we were concerned about going into the match, Fulham just took care of. And they, and again, were the aggressor throughout the match. So that's what surprised me about this, and again, I want to share this because I did see this Benjamin versus Carlo, very respectful of Fulham post-match. And I believe that to be true. I'm just looking at the approach before, during the match. During the match, maybe he just thought that his team, he stuck with his plan and that eventually they would come to life and it would work out. And then eventually he had to react after the fact, after we scored the goal. That's when he reacted and made the changes. But maybe you're right, Giannis. Maybe he did not see what Scott Parker had planned for him. And that to me, and again, Carlo Ancelotti is a first-class manager. But maybe Scott Parker just, had a very good plan and it took him a while. Or again, he was trusting his side that later on, he figured they would figure it out, but then he had to adjust. And after he adjusted, we were already ahead.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I think, the results don't lie. I mean, we've put in some very, very, very good performances and we've not come out with a lot.
Right.
And if you look at the game against the Spammers last week, we really should have won.
We definitely should have.
And I think Scotty probably said, look, we are where we are. Let's forget the table. But being in the Premier League is created for these moments.
Yes.
There's a place we've not come to for over 6 decades and got a win. It's not like we've got 35, 40,000, Evertonians, screaming for blood. It's an empty stadium. Let's have a go. Let's finally convert one of these because you guys have deserved the chance. And I thought we were first to 90 minutes. I thought we were absolutely fantastic. And really, Ancelotti being the gentleman he is, he had no choice but to admit that they were second best to a Fulham side that really wanted it more.
Yeah, that was
desperate.
Pure class at the end. And I will admit that. Thank you, Benjamin, for bringing that up. I was just really talking about before and during the match, the approach. But as you're saying that maybe he just trusted his team and was surprised and he probably figured, you know what? We're going to be able to figure it out without me having to make changes. And then he realized he needed to make changes. And at that point, it was honestly, Giannis, it was too late because we didn't change our approach. I'm talking about being on the front foot, the energy, all 90 plus minutes. They were in it to the end. And I know fans like to talk about the last 10 minutes being nervy, and it was nervous for me. But the players were still giving it 150%. They were still going at it. So they didn't change the way that they looked at it. They had enough energy after running all over the pitch. Think of someone like Harrison Reed, Bobby Decordova-Reid, how much room he covered with his pressing, all the pressing that they did, and they still had the energy in the end. I mean, that to me is a testament to the players, also Parker and the staff to getting this team fit to play that way. So it all came together. But like you said, Giannis, it was coming. As we were saying on the last show, we could feel it. The West Ham match was an indicator. Okay, we're close. We need to knock the door down. Well, now they knocked it down. Now they completely knocked it down. They got the victory. Now what do you do moving forward? Because, again, we're going to talk about Burnley because this is a completely different kettle of fish and a completely different setup, how they're going to look at this match. I'm talking about Sean Dyche, who I have a lot of respect for. And it's going to be a difficult match, but it's one that I think Fulham are going to be up for the challenge, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes because we want to preview the match. But I do have a topic I want to discuss, and it involves some guys on Sky Sports talking about Fulham after the match, and it happened to be our friend Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville. Now, what's interesting about this, you haven't seen this. I watched it this morning. It's on Sky Sports, and they were talking about Fulham's chances of surviving. And I understand because they were using numbers. This is something that Mike would do. Our friend Mike Gregg, great with numbers and talking about how basically they were giving two different scenarios. One, I believe Fulham would have to have the 11th best record in the final 15 matches, but the more realistic one was going to be the 9th. But they were, the reason why both of them were going along that it was going to be very difficult for Fulham, and I understand this, was they were focusing on Newcastle, Giannis, because Newcastle only needs a certain amount of points, and Fulham obviously need to play catch up here, and that Newcastle really don't need that many points to get to safety compared to Fulham. That's what they were focusing on, and I get that. My counter to that is, and I believe Jamie Carragher even said that it would need to be something that we haven't seen for in a very long period of time. To be honest, I've already witnessed it. I've already seen it. The Great Escape. We've already been through this. I know it's possible. And the thing about it is, I wouldn't be feeling this way if I hadn't seen the performances. Now we've seen a result, and I've seen us going in a positive way. I can actually see people are asking me, why do you still feel confident? And the part of the reason is, and it goes back to following other teams, when you watch a team and you see things that give you reasons to be positive. I'll use even my own New England Patriots a few seasons ago when everyone was down on them, but I could see the defense was coming together at the very end of the season. They ended up winning the Super Bowl, Giannis, when no one really saw that coming. I kind of had a premonition because I was watching. I was watching between the lines, I guess you could say. I could see the progression. I see a similar progression with Fulham. Will it be enough? Only time will tell. But I understand where these guys are coming. But when it comes to Carragher, this for me, is about protecting his reputation. And I will use someone that you will know very well. Max Kellerman made a prediction that Tom Brady was going to fall off the cliff. And Stephen A. Smith went at him, and he did this partially because he had just come on a new show, and he wanted to make this big take. Well, Jamie Carragher did one at the beginning of the season, Giannis, and he can't go back from it. So he has to go full on with this take. So fine, you're going to go full on with it. I just think that this is what we're going to hear. But you know what? It's all good, Giannis, because the players are going to hear it. Scott Parker's going to hear it. This is all fuel. The pundits can talk about the chances of survival. We can talk about it. It's all good because the players, like I said, can use it. Your thoughts?
Well, one of the reasons I think we've got a really good chance of staying up is that neither of those clowns are our manager. I mean, we all know what happened when Gary Neville went to Valencia. That was a train wreck. They're still picking up the bits from the side of the track. I've got the greatest amount of respect for Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville as former players. They were fantastic players and they were leaders. I don't think there's any question about that. But you can't make sweeping statements about a team 4 games into a 38-game season and think you know something. It's because so much can go wrong. You've got to think of...
It started all the way back then. So there is some history with Jamie Carragher. But as someone just said to me, and I'll share this, and my friend Chris is right. He did say we were playing well. He did say that. But again, they have this conversation a day after a huge Fulham victory. Why are they doing it? Why are they focusing on Fulham? Because I think it goes back, this is just my opinion, to what Carragher said back at the beginning of the season. They need to protect him, and they're going to have a conversation to show that he's still on the right side right now.
Well, that we've conceded less goals than Liverpool.
We have.
And that's not my opinion, that's a fact. And if you look at what happened with the nonsense of starting the season, I know we started recruiting later than any of us because of the playoff win.
Yes.
But basically, you look at that back four that started the season, he's had to bed in a completely new team, Scotty Parker.
Absolutely.
He's tried to instill that confidence, and he's worked so hard on the field, against public scrutiny. But what he said, what he says after every game is, look, pundits can say whatever they want, but I see these boys week in, week out. I see them on the training field.
Even
and
said
I see
that
what
today.
They can do. Yeah, I see what they do, and I have faith in what they do. And, the pundits will have their say. The fact of the matter is we've been improving, leaps and bounds with the odd hiccup. A couple of weeks ago, Leicester, I think we looked a little flat against Leicester and they schooled us, even with the casualties. They're second in the table for a reason. We've had opportunities to win games, Brighton twice, Liverpool at home. We had the Man United hiccup, Newcastle United where we were robbed, Sheffield United where we were robbed. You look at all these games and you go, well, how did that? Even against Leeds, we were 4-1 down, bring it back to 4-3. Could have tied it. Could
Look
have
how
won
far they come from that Leeds match.
Yeah.
Go all the way back there.
And
look how far they've come.
Yeah, and I'm the begrudging play. We're playing well. No, well, I think it's been a monumental effort to get us where we are right now.
Right.
And they can say whatever they want, but tomorrow is our game in hand. We're 7 points behind. We win the game in hand. We go 4 behind.
What if they win?
What if they win? We've got Sheffield United. I watched that game yesterday against the Spammers. They looked miserable.
How about Crystal Palace? Giannis?
Palace looked even more miserable against Burnley. They were, the most one-player team, the biggest one-player team in the Premier League.
It's amazing
Palace.
How much that team misses Zaha. It's like night and day, and it's funny because we're starting to see some of that. Yeah, we've now seen it with Everton. I'm going to say we won't see it at the end of the season, but you're seeing it from Newcastle without Callum Wilson.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're seeing that. What's great about us, even though we were missing, and it's still early days to see if Maja's going to be that player to score us goals consistently. But we had all the other ingredients, I think, to be a team that could stay in this league. Missing that one player. And what's interesting, Danny Higginbotham here in the U.S. was on Peacock in NBC Sports, and he basically was putting it on that we basically had everything else except for that goal scorer. What if they have found the goal scorer? And then also, don't rule out Mitro playing a role, Cavallero playing a role. We're not one-dimensional like these other clubs. That also gives me hope, Giannis, is that we've already shown that we can play different ways. I think that teams like Crystal Palace, I'm going to say it, even Everton, with how well they are, and they have a talented side, how much they miss one player, how it affects them so much. And then you look at Newcastle. Newcastle, I think, are going to struggle until he returns. That, to me, is the difference between Fulham, because, listen, Fulham have struggled to get the points, but I think that, and again, I think they're finding their own identity even without a focal point. But with a focal point, I think it can take us over the top.
And I'd even say, Russ, if at the end of the season we get into a worst-case scenario and we get relegated.
Yep.
You can't blame Scotty.
No, absolutely not. He's tried it and done everything possible.
And you can't blame the players because the players have drunk the Kool-Aid. So you have to point fingers. And it's funny, and this probably won't interest the Fulham fans a lot, but I think it's pertinent. It's big news here in North America because the other club that Carnes own is the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yep.
And they recently hired a new head coach, Urban Meyer's done brilliant in college football for any to follow. But one of his first hires was a strength and conditioning coach who's basically been turfed because of his racist language, misogynistic views, treatment of players.
Yeah.
And when you first come into an NFL franchise, any professional franchise, the first hires that you have are critical because it is, firstly, because people notice it.
Yep.
And secondly, these are part of what becomes the team behind the face behind the club.
Exactly.
It was a disastrous hire. And to me, that points to a lack of attention to detail that Shahid Khan would actually go along with this hire on the basis of, well, he's my guy because I've worked with him for 20 years. Now, there's an acute lack of black coaches, not just in the NFL, but over in England.
I completely agree. Yeah.
The Premier League, Championship, you name it. So, I think it's something where, they own AEW, they own Fulham, they own Jacksonville Jaguars. But for all the money that they've made, the franchises that they've owned, there has to be more scrutiny and more attention to detail. That, for me, was a terrible hire. If you look at this team, we were basically, Scotty was told, basically said, okay, screw it, you're going to go on 5 because you're going to get thumped. That Palace game when we lost 2-1 at home, it was 2-0 until late. We were never in that game. And Scotty has done, he and his coaching team have done everything, and these players have given it everything and anything.
Absolutely, Giannis.
So I think if we get...
Can't fault the effort.
That's right. But if we stay up, you have to say, Scotty, the players, we're not worthy. If we go down, There's no way you can blame these players or those coaches. And I think it's going to be topic for discussion at the end of the year. But I thought I'd bring that up because it's, as you know, you and I are football fans here, and it's a really concerning hire. Now, he stepped down. The guy quit.
That's right.
Good. But why make that decision in the first place? It's all about decision making.
No, I understand that, and it's funny because Urban Meyer is, and again, he's a great coach, but there's a history that goes along with him with, and again, some of the players that have played for him. Unfortunately, I am very familiar with, and our audience would probably know the Aaron Hernandez story and how, and how the Patriots had Aaron Hernandez and Belichick's relationship to Urban Meyer. But yeah, it is about the decisions that you make, the hires that you make, especially in the beginning. And listen, I think Urban Meyer's a good coach, but I see where you're going on when you talk about the different clubs that the Khans own. And listen, I support the Jaguars. I'm glad that he's gone and move forward from that. But when we talk about Fulham, Giannis, bringing it back to Fulham, you can't, like you said, you can't fault the players. You can't fault Parker. I think they've all done a tremendous job. With the limited amount of time that they've had. And yes, we are 7 points behind. But even if they don't make it, I'm still going to be very proud of this club. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be very proud of this particular team. And you know what? I was thinking about this, and I'll say it right now. I think this is a very likable team. And I know that there are a lot of loans, and we've heard all the talk about how many loans Fulham have. But if you look at the players, they're likable players. Obviously there are some that you might like more than others, but I like the way that this team is playing together as a unit, considering so many are on loan. And anyways, we could talk about that for days, my friend. But listen, coming up next, we're going to preview the upcoming match for Fulham against Burnley. Okay, Giannis, let's start here. Just give me your overall thoughts on Burnley.
Well, from a negative side, they're not great on the eye. They're not a purist team. They're not that much fun to watch. Turf Moor is a difficult place to play. Sean Dyche is, he's a manager who's, he's blue collar manager. He's been there for years.
Yep.
Year in, year out, they're tipped to go down. But I'll tell you what, there isn't a harder working team than Burnley in the Premier League. I don't think anybody has done any more with any set of individuals in this league than Sean Dyche has done. He runs on shoestring budgets. He has created a team spirit which is in many ways unrivaled in the Premier League. He's got good players that have bought into his system, and although they don't score many goals, they're very, very difficult to break down.
That's right.
They hunt in packs. They're very well organized, and they're a side that I have a lot of time for, not because of the style that they play, but because of the lack of resources that they have, and they give it everything. And you got to
respect that. I respect that.
Hugely respect for Burnley. I really do. And you can look at the big clubs and all the money that they've got, and you look at Burnley's budget, and you just have to laugh. But this is going to be a very interesting game. We've not won up Turf Moor since '51. Ben Mee, as you know, is out with a concussion protocol.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
That's a massive loss.
Yep.
But they have other people that can hurt us. This will be a very different game than the Everton game, and I think it's not going to be any less difficult for us. I think it's going to be a very tough match, and I have a couple of concerns stemming from the Everton game that I'm going to be curious to see how they'll manifest itself in terms of the lineup and the formation that Scotty puts out on Wednesday.
Oh, excellent. We're going to talk about that in just a bit because I definitely want your thoughts on what you think Scott Parker will do with the lineup and also the formation. That's very interesting to say. But let's focus a little bit more on Dyche, because you said something that was interesting. You're talking about how they play for the manager. And I will say that, again, I have much respect for Sean Dyche, but I think Burnley's identity is him. I think that they've built this identity that is really all about, it starts with Sean Dyche. And whether you like the style or not, it's something to be respected, Giannis. So let's talk a little bit more about him because, again, what's interesting about Deitch is that I remember when they went down, they came right back up, and now they've established themselves in the Premier League. Now, they've teetered in a few seasons, but they usually find their footing, and they're basically a mid-table team, or they could even go further up the table. And again, I think that this team plays in the mirror of their manager.
Yeah, they absolutely do it. It's like when Eddie Howe lost his job at Bournemouth last year.
Which is crazy to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought that up because there's another manager similar to Deitch that I just don't understand that situation. But I don't know the Bournemouth situation that greatly. But
I think he needed a break. To me, Eddie Howe's the next manager of Palace.
Okay.
I think that. We love Roy to death. He's 73. He's out of contract at the end of the season. He's obviously going to have his trusty Ray Lewington, who we all love. But Eddie Howe's looking for a position. He's going to go back in the Premier League. Which one is going to be open? It's probably going to be Palace if they don't go down. So that's great. But Sean Dyche, he's what he's done is absolutely magnificent. They have a very bad habit of embarrassing teams. The game against Palace on Saturday was an embarrassment because Burnley were 2 up in talk.
I watched that entire match.
Oh, they were excellent, and Palace looked. It's weird watching Hodgson because you got players. I think Eze had a very, very good season for them, but you got players like Riedewald who's now starting to play, but wasn't playing for the longest time. Who I think is a super player. But you take Zaha, and Zaha is a Premier quality player that should be playing in Champions League. I know he's got his mood swings.
But you take him out of the mix as we're talking about with some of these other teams, and they become ordinary or even less than ordinary.
Very ordinary. So if they lose him, and I think they will at the end of this season, it's going to be a little. There's so many good players that the Palace have, and even on the bench, but I think they just need a change of voice. With Sean Dyche, that's his team. It's rare that we see that kind of loyalty in terms of club versus manager. And my wife and I were talking about this yesterday about Ralph Hasenhüttl at Southampton. 2-9-0 defeats in the space of 12 months. Are they going to fire him? Hell no. They've lost 6 on the trot. Not playing well, but Southampton love this manager, and they're on a bad run. But it's these titchy little owners that go, "Oh, we're going to fire him." No. It's the loyalty that does it. People will forget back in 1987 that Sir Alex Ferguson was 1 game.
That's right.
Away from being fired. 1 game. You stick to your guns. You have faith in the process, and above all, you have faith in the person at the top unless something egregious happens. I still say for Fulham fans, and I'll get some disagreement, I thought we suffered long and hard after we got rid of Malcolm McDonald in the early 80s. He was a quality manager and he was loved, and then we got rid of him, and it took us years to recover from that. And we had a good thing, and we were on the verge of getting promoted to the top division. So with Dyche, they've stuck to him, and I think it's brilliant. Yep. And it means that every time you play Burnley, you're in for a fight.
I totally agree, Giannis. It's and that's kind of where we're going to go on this. But I do want to talk about this because you've mentioned this, and let's go here next because I think this is huge for this upcoming match. Ben Mee is ruled out for the match, and I do have a couple comments I want to share that people are commenting, and I'll share this in just a second about this. But just your thoughts on this because again, I don't think this is a small loss. This is your captain. And I'm talking about for Burnley. So how big of a loss? You said you think it's significant. How significant?
I think it's significant, but I don't think it's necessarily massive. And the reason is, if you look at the makeup of you got Nick Pope, one of the best keepers in the division.
Yep.
Should be England. I'm sorry, not Pickford. Pickford gives me ulcers. Pope should be our starting goalkeeper. You got James Tarkowski, who, let's not forget, is an England fullback.
That's right.
Matt Loughton was superb against Palace. This is not. Yep. We found out in the FA Cup game when we lost 3-0 that when they bought some of their, Stephen A. Smith would say, bring the scrubs in, right? But when he bought some of the scrubs in, their scrubs made us look stupid.
That's right.
So Ben Mee, he was injured earlier in the season, and they really, really missed him.
Yes.
But Tarkowski and Mee have really improved in their form. And you've got other players, like McNeil, Ashley Barnes. You lose Chris Wood, but Matty Vidra, who has been this almost like the, Dwight Gale hop around club kind of thing, but Vidra's contributed goals. You've got Wood gone, but then James Rodriguez always scores goals against us.
He does, and that also scares me. I'm glad that you brought him up because we'll talk about him when we talk about players that concern you for this match. So again, I agree with you. I think it's a loss, and I just want to share this comment. Burnley are very reliant on Ben Mee, and he is out. Yes, I'm aware of that. And then follows this up. If you can test Kevin Long, you will score. So again, good points, but they do have other players that they can rely on at different positions. But I don't want to, just look at it, Giannis, and say it's not a loss because they did struggle without him.
But they're in a rich vein of form, and I think with Burnley, if you look at their whole team, they're the sum of their parts.
Yep.
Deitch will look at that and say, "Okay, we've lost our captain, but how do we fill in?" To me, they're a better back four than Everton. I mean, and if you look back to Everton, one of the things that I first noticed when I saw the line, I thought, wait a minute, Yerry Mina's not playing.
Yeah.
Like, why isn't he in there? I mean, he's a monster at the back, and he's real solid pass.
Well, I've seen a lot of criticism from the Everton supporters about the lineup decisions from Carlo Ancelotti against Fulham.
Yeah, defensively it looked a little rubbery. You had James Rodriguez come in, but it was a cold day. I mean, it's not in Bogota now; it's in Liverpool, for crying out loud. But again, defensively, if they've got a lack of cover with me not being there, the defensive midfield will hunt in packs to drop. It's going to be me as a significant. If it was me on another team, I'd worry more than me on this team because collectively they will cover for that. I just think that
because they play together as a team.
They play together as a team, and you've got a very good keeper who's difficult to beat.
That's a good point.
And Turf Moor is a tough ground because if you've ever been up there, and I have a couple of times, it's bloody cold. It's really, really cold and biting, and you need lots of Bovril at halftime. And you're going up there for a 6 o'clock kickoff. Yeah. And you're just coming off the euphoria of a huge win at Goodison Park. And, we saw what happened against Liverpool at home when we were fantastic with our 2,000 fans. Then 72 hours later, we were back to play Brighton. And we didn't look the same team. We got the draw out of it. No, not at all. So, there's the impact that we, as a Scotty, he can't say, okay, well, Ben Mee's not there. We're laughing. No, because if you do that, you'll go back to an FA Cup game where they let's be honest, they spanked us. It wasn't 3-0, wasn't it? I mean, it really wasn't.
Well, we're going to
close.
talk about that because I want to see what Scott Parker can learn from that. So I'm glad that you brought that up. But as we're talking about them, I think this is a good time to focus on it because you're talking about some key players. So who really concerns you on Burnley as we look forward to this match that Scott Parker has to look at? Listen, we need to contain these players or not get affected as much by them. Who really concerns you on Burnley?
Ashley Barnes. He's a very, very clever player, and he's one of those. He's in many ways, I think he's their Harrison Reed, but in a different position. He doesn't stop working. He makes it difficult for defenders. He closes space down. He can cross a ball. He can shoot. He can head, and he's not. And when he tackles, he doesn't put attackers' tackles in. He puts midfielders' tackles in. He's a tough little lad, and he's in many ways. I think he's in many ways the microcosm that is Burnley Football Club. He represents them better than Ben Mee. I think he's one of those players. Yeah, he's one of those players who he's pest-like, but not nasty pest-like. He's productive pest-like. He doesn't go out and do a Joey Barton and kick people for the sake of kicking them. He's a team player, and very often you'll see him dropping around his box or coming back to defend set pieces. He's a good player, and he will produce something out of nothing. So he worries me. If Chris Wood and me together, Wood and Barnes cause a problem, but Rodriguez has a great scoring record against us, and we have to be very good because
I believe Wood is a doubt for this match as well.
So Rodriguez may play. Vidra doesn't worry me so much, but I'm not going to downplay him because he still brings lots of energy. But Rodriguez has the ability to score for sure. So we can't underestimate the fact that they've only scored 17 league games or 17 goals all season. They can still score. And as far as Deitch is concerned, he'll say, well, I don't care if we win it 1-0 as long as we win it 1-0. So, it's
Sure.
they're not going to concede many. It's just they're not going to score many, and it's sort of not too dissimilar to our pattern. Our form has improved because defensively we've got much, much tighter, and I think that's a key.
Okay, excellent. I do want to share this with you because I know you're going to appreciate it. This is from my friend Chris. I've been to Turf Moor. I can vouch it's really cold there.
Oh, it's brutal. It is the coldest the coldest stadium I've ever been to, Russ. In the UK is Aberdeen. I mean, it's just my God. But Burnley's right up there. Burnley's right up there. It is freaking cold. And you got the winds usually coming in from the north stand, and it is. But then they were at Goodison Park on Sunday, and it was cold there. It was windy, and if you've ever been to Everton, their fans are very, very loud, and I can understand why teams go there and just freeze. But not having fans, look what Liverpool game, Russ. Look at what happened when we had 2,000 in the stands.
I know.
It's incredible.
It did.
Oh, Boundary. CG just put the coldest ground in England is Oldham. Boundary Park. Yeah, I think he's probably right. I've been to Oldham too. Holy crap. That was insane. I went to a game in 83, 84 up at Boundary Park.
Yeah.
And I think they may have had a plastic pitch then. They might have done. And my God, it was cool. There were parts of my body I lost that day. I don't think I've ever got back. It was so cold. But the more northwest, northeast it gets, Boundary Park, oh lordy.
Well, don't get me started about cold weather games because I could talk to you about a Patriots game. No one wants to hear that about, and Chris, who happens to be a Patriots fan. Chris, I'm going to admit this on the show, and I'm doing it for you, just for you. I went to a Patriots game where it was the coldest Patriots game I've ever been to, and I left at halftime. Yes, Chris, I'm admitting this. I left at halftime.
No.
My family stayed. I've never heard the end of it. They got to see the end of it. They were actually inside, not a suite, but inside. They watched it more inside, but I went home and I never heard the end of it. It was against the Denver Broncos because the Patriots came all the way back and won. Never heard the end of it. Talk about cold games. That's just for you, Chris, by the way. And no one else that's watching this will understand, but I'm sure I think it was 2012 or 2013. Anyways. Giannis, I do want to share this because we are talking about crowds, and I'm just looking for the comment from our friend Chris Davidson, because I think this is significant. And this goes to what we were talking about at Everton, and we talk about the record. Not having fans. No fans has changed all this, that there are difficult places to go. Chris is right. And like you said, even for us playing at home, having those fans there for the Liverpool match, and then you don't have them, it changes a lot, Giannis. So with everything that I hear about the history of Turf Moor, that I heard about Goodison Park, this might be the equalizer, not having fans there.
I agree. And, we've got to go to Selhurst Park as well. And having, I used to live literally one street away from the Holmesdale Road end at Selhurst Park. That. Yes, I did for a number of years. And it was, if Fulham games were off, I'd go down to see Palace play. And when Charlton played back many years. And Wimbledon used to play at Selhurst Park as well, another little thing. But
wow.
Palace fans are loud, like really loud. And they have suffered. Their home record is not good. And I think a lot of that is they don't have the fans.
Yep.
The home versus away results this year,
it's crazy.
Through the four divisions is crazy. And our away form has been comfortably better than home. We just don't. Although we've got the dimensions of the home thing, because Craven Cottage is so on top of the fans and it's so tight and compact, we've not been able to benefit from that with not having the fans. So Burnley away from home is a difficult proposition, but because there are no fans, it makes it not having to listen to those Burnley accents, heaping vile and venom on their posh, soft London team. as they say, soft Londoners. But so it gives us a chance at least to not get insulted and what have you. And because let's be honest, it's tough enough to go up there and get a result. So if you're going to get something in your advantage from no crowds, take it.
Yeah, absolutely, Giannis. Absolutely. When it comes to, well, listen, we all wish that fans were able to return, and I don't care who it is. I want fans to return, but under the circumstances, it actually, I think, benefits Fulham on the road at Turf Moor. But let's talk about this. Let's move forward in our preview, because I was talking about this off air that I was initially going to have you look at this like, what can you learn from this? But no. What can Scott Parker learn from this? Because what's interesting, when you look at it as a manager, and listen, you are a coach, so you can really look at this. So Fulham were outclassed in an FA Cup match, like you said, and they were using backups. And their backups basically did a number on us. So again, what can Scott Parker learn from this and take into this match? Because that, to me, in a weird way, playing Burnley in the FA Cup match might benefit Fulham, because it might give them a strategy to beat Burnley. Not that they wouldn't already have one, but they might have more of a blueprint because they already played Burnley.
I think I'd be surprised if he doesn't adopt the same approach as Sean Dyche will approach, which is, don't look at our 3-0 win down at the Cottage and think that it's going to be indicative of the game that's going to come. Dyche is smart enough to know that, he looked at our lineup, he probably saw number 3 Ream and went, oh, okay, thought, okay, we now know what's going to happen here, and they tonked us that day. Burnley were excellent, and really we never got a foot in. That's not our strongest lineup. That wasn't their strongest lineup. And I think Parker will look at it the same way. I think he's going to say, well, we had the lineup that we did. We're going to go up there. We know it's going to be a difficult game. We have to play them twice. But they're missing, obviously, a vital centre-back. But we know this is going to be a physical game. We're going to have to get off to the same sort of start we did against Everton. I don't think he's going to... He'd be foolish. I think he'd be foolish to base this game on what happened in the FA Cup game. I just think it's a different circumstance. But the one thing he will say is, boys, if you think Goodison Park was tough, wait till you get to Turf Moor. Burnley are going to come at us in droves. This will be a physical, brutal game, and be ready. Okay.
Very good there, my friend. All right. So I like to do this, and again, I don't know many other shows that do it this way. I usually do it with the guests, but I'm going to pose it to you. We're going to look at it from both perspectives, not just the Fulham perspective. We're going to look at it from the Burnley perspective. So I'm going to put you in the shoes of Sean Dyche. Giannis, how does Burnley win this match?
They used the energy they used in the first 12 minutes against Palace on Saturday. They came out guns flying, and Palace looked like they'd been drunk in the pub. And Burnley absolutely outclassed them. And I think he's going to warn his lads that, look, Fulham have just had a very good result at Everton. But you know what? They've had to travel up on a Sunday. They've travelled down on a Sunday night. Now they've got to travel up on a Wednesday. We know what they can do, but this will be a tough game. They're playing for their lives. This is going to be a blue collar match, and you better get down and dirty because it's going to be tough. He will keep them. I find that Sean Dyche, Burnley teams tend to be very terra firma. They don't get too high. They don't get too low.
They do what they do, as we say here. They do what they do. Okay.
Yeah, so I think he'll be very focused and ready, and I don't believe for a moment that he'll underestimate us.
Okay. Now you're in the shoes of Scott Parker. How does Fulham win this match?
I think a lot's going to have to depend on the lineup. I'm a little worried. It was a pretty bruising match on Sunday. We saw Magic come off the bench, limping. We saw Lamina come off limping.
Yeah.
Do you utilize Anguissa? I think you have to in this game. I don't think he's got any choice. Does Robinson get utilized here? Because he didn't say anything in the pre.
He did not. I was looking for it. He did not talk about injuries or anything in his presser, which I don't know why he didn't. I don't think he was even asked, Giannis, but he didn't. And actually, that little bit concerned me. So it's funny because I actually had a good friend message me and actually reminded me of Maja coming off limping. And, and I remember Lamina coming off. They both did. So let's just hope that it was just from the effort and maybe, again, that they would, that it wasn't really just an injury. It was just from the play of the match, and they're going to be okay. But it's something to really think about, the lineup. And that's, and we're definitely going to get to that next, Giannis, because I want to fast forward over there to starting 11 in formation. Okay. This is going to be interesting, Giannis, because there's a part of me that says, stick with what we just did against Everton. Play the same formation. If you can, if everyone is fit, play the exact same team. What would you do? So I'm asking you for a starting 11 in formation against Burnley, which we know is it's going to be a completely different style. So what do you do if you're Scott Parker? What would you do?
I think the biggest conversation he would have had with his coaching staff this season came on Monday morning, because he would have said, he'd say, look, we've got Burnley, we've got to go up there, but we've got Sheffield United Saturday. How did the players feel after the game?
Right.
Did they have any bumps and bruises? Is it such that because of the size of our squad, we're going to have to perhaps prioritize here? Do we rest a couple of players and keep them back for the Sheffield United game at home, because that's a much more winnable game? And because if we go guns blazing and something goes wrong, we risk having problems coming. It's Sheffield United. I think it's a very difficult. 3 games in 6 days is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
But I think these 3 games are huge. And I think the selection is going to be a problem because we don't know the extent of the injuries thing. So so I think for the back, I think obviously Areola's the first in the team sheet. You've got your back 3. I think you keep them there. I think for the midfield,
would you stick with a back 3?
I think I would against Burnley, and I'm not, and that's nothing against them. I just think that because of a lot of their attacks will tend to come through the middle. Got to keep an eye on McNeil because he's a crafty little player. But I keep it at 3 just to take that momentum from the Everton game. But then the midfield is where Reed, I'm assuming he's going to be okay. I think Anguissa has to start instead of Lamina, and that would be for a break.
Do you stick with Ruben Loftus-Cheek?
Yes, I think I do. There were moments of sheer magic on Sunday and moments of sheer frustration. This is the sort of game that if he's on the ball, they're going to clatter him, and he's going to have to wisen up to that. There is part of me that's thinking maybe you give Josh Onomah a game.
Oh, okay.
I'm worried about the energy levels because Saturday's thing, but I'd stick to those 3.
Well, that's interesting because you really have to manage. You're not just managing this match; you're managing the upcoming Sheffield United match. And listen, we could talk about which one's more winnable, and I don't like doing that because I like focusing on one match at a time. But if you're Scott Parker, you have to look at the bigger picture. You have to focus on not just on this match, but on Sheffield United, because you don't want to leave yourself in a pickle for that match, which on the face of it, I hate to say, is more winnable. It's more winnable. And out of the 2, that's the one and they're both very important, but that's the one that you really are, you're targeting a win in both, but that one seems more winnable. And I hate going there on that, but that's how I feel. Okay. Go ahead, Giannis, with your starting 11.
Now, with the up front, this is going to cause some tongues wagging.
Mitro's out, so we can just rule him out. He's out.
Mitro's out. Lookman, I think, has to start. He's got lots of energy. That was very dangerous on Sunday. I mean, he had an extra yard because he was against his former team. Although somebody put up a very amusing picture of the year that he played for Everton. That he was caught wearing a watch. I've never ever seen a player wearing a watch during a game. That was an odd one. But each to his own.
Okay.
Bobby Day could do a read on the right hand. I mean, he's just that flick from the corner that hit the post in the first half was so audacious. If that had gone in, that might have been one of the goals of the season. Up front, in the middle, I'm not going to pick Madger.
Really?
No, I'm going to. I would.
Wait a minute. You're going to go with Cav?
Yes, I am.
Wow.
And the reason I'm going to go with Cav.
Wow, Giannis.
but I'm thinking outside the box here. I think that
Okay.
Madge has just come over from Bordeaux. He had a sort of
Okay.
little appearance against against the Spammers, and he's played very well. But I think Scotty said something at the end of the game I thought was telling, when he said, what, he's a young lad. We don't want to put all these pressures on his shoulders. We want to gently get him in, what have you. I think that he'll keep him back for the Sheffield United game, and I think that Cav, he's a very good option to bring off the bench.
Okay.
Really,
Okay.
if it's 0-0, 25, 30 minutes to go, okay, Josh, go do your thing, go run around. But I think it's an away game, Cav can hold the ball up. It's not that he can't score for a lick, but he'll do his job in terms of his work rate. I know it's tempting to put him in. Can Madja play 3 games in 6 days? I'm not. I don't. No, I think it's a risk, and I play Cav. And I know I'm going to get a lot of stick for that.
So let's go back to the line, because you said you were going to have back 3. I'm assuming you're going back 3 of Aina, Tosin, Anderson.
And Tete would go slot into the middle as the wing back.
Okay, and then who's on the other side?
Not sure.
Okay,
I'm not sure. I mean, there's an argument for Anderson to come in. Anderson Robinson to come in because he didn't play.
To come in.
And I think, and you've got to look at him because he'll.
Or that you're leaving Bobby Decordova-Reid out.
That's the problem. I'm weighing that out because Decordova-Reid, I think, probably covered as much or almost as much ground as Reedy did.
His pressing was excellent. You go back and watch that. His pressing was again, that's the grafting, that's the hard work that gets lost in a victory like that. You go back and you watch him just, again, we're focusing on Harrison Reed, but it's the play of someone like him that doesn't get noticed enough in that victory. Go back and watch it. I've now watched it 3 times. I hate to admit.
It's great. It was a super performance. And by the way, just as an aside, you can shove Harry Winks and Declan Rice and all these bollocks. Gareth Southgate needs to come out and watch Harrison Reed play.
Okay. So you're unsure on the other fullback.
No, I am a little.
Okay.
But because I'll tell you why. Because Scotty said so little after the game about injuries that it's making me wonder if we're gonna get the lineup an hour before tomorrow and go, oh, what's happened there? We know Micho's out, but he hasn't told us. The recovery, right?
I think there might be something going on. That's why I put up the graphic about Maja and Lamina. Now, I could be wrong, or there could be someone else that we're not aware of, but I just find it fascinating that we don't know anything. And he normally does say something.
Yes, he does.
He said nothing. I mean, he usually even comes out and says it. He said nothing. So that kind of makes me think, is something going on? But again, only time will tell. And I think, we could be surprised when we see it. But Giannis, we need to finish up. Okay, we need to finish up this episode. It's funny. You and I talked about we go about a half hour, 45 minutes. We get going and we just keep going because it's been a wonderful show as always. Just me and you talking, but we have to end with your prediction. And fans, if you're watching live, feel free to share your prediction. Giannis, give me your prediction. I'll give you mine.
0-0.
Oh, really?
0-0. And you know what? To be honest, I would take a 0-0. I'd take a draw.
Would you really?
Yeah, I would. Because if you look at because Burnley are playing well, and they were very good against Palace, and they've crept up the table, and deservedly so. There've been no flukes here. Sheffield United were very poor yesterday. Palace are an absolute wreck, and I'm certain we're going to win at Selhurst Park. So a draw would be. I think a draw would be.
Emilio was thinking that he would be okay with a draw against Burnley. He just doesn't want to lose against Burnley, which I completely understand. He was putting more importance on Sheffield United, and like you're saying, I believe he also was thinking about Crystal Palace ahead. So I understand that. So I understand why you're going for 0-0. And listen, I want to give credit to my friend here, who I believe is a Burnley supporter. He's going 1-1, and fair by you. It's funny. I was listening to a podcast, and all the people on the podcast were predicting a Burnley win. And listen, I understand that. And what's interesting, my friend, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to say a 1-1 draw. You went 0-0. I can't stand it. I can't go for 0-0 again. We've done too many. I'm going to, but I want to preface this. Fulham need to go for the victory. They need to go for the victory. But I'm going to say, I'm going to agree with my friend here. I'm going to say 1-1, but I'm going to share some more predictions here. This is from my friend Chris. He's going with a Fulham victory. Chris, thank you very much for that. Stefan says 1-0 to Fulham. I've got Chris Davidson. Let's see what we got. I'm just sharing all these predictions. Brian Lake. 1-1 Maja off the bench to equalize. So he's going with you with Josh Maja coming off the bench. So we'll see what happens, my friend. But listen, I know we have to wrap up this show. Final thoughts before we go.
I'm just checking the weather for tomorrow night in Burnley.
What's the weather?
It's forecast for tomorrow is 9 degrees.
Okay.
So that's 48 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's not
Feels
bad.
like 6. And it's going to rain. It's Burnley, isn't it?
Well,
that's what it does up there. Burnley, Bolton, Blackburn, Blackpool, Liverpool, mate. It's all bloody rain. So it's going to be rainy. But it's going to be fairly mild. I think it's going to be. I'm looking forward. I think it's going to be a good game between two very hard-working teams and two very well-coached teams too. And I really do believe it'll be on as even. Of course, I hope we nick it in the last minute. But I think nil will be probably what we're looking at tomorrow. But we'll see.
Okay. I will say this because a dream of mine is that someday I can have 2 to 3 weeks holiday vacation that I can go to England. And one of the things I want to do is I just don't want to go to London. I want to go everywhere. I actually want to go to Burnley. I do. I want to go to. I want to see turf more. I actually do. I was thinking about while we're talking about. It's like I actually want to go there. I want to see that. I want to go there. I want to experience that. I want to experience some of these other stadiums that you've been talking about. I don't care. I want to go to all of them, and because that's actually something that I've always wanted to do here. Go to the different stadiums and visit these cities and towns. And Burnley's actually one of them that I do want to go to. I don't care that it's cold, Giannis. I want to go there.
It's a proper. I mean, the thing about Burnley.
I live in Massachusetts, Giannis. Come on.
Burnley's what I would call a proper football club. And yes. I mean that in the nicest terms. They're a proper football club. They've always been well run. They've got a great history.
I have to share this. I have to share this. No, you don't. From me saying that, I'm like, no, I actually do. I do want to go there. I actually do. I want to go all over England and Scotland and Wales. I want to do it right.
I will stop you at Wales. I went to university there. We'll have a chat about that with you and I.
Okay. Giannis, I lost you for a second. Listen, we are going to have to wrap up the show because I know Giannis has to leave. For Giannis Janaeus, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.